Hi, everyone. Welcome to Soul Astrology with Christine and Laura. Today, we are going to be talking about the story of the soul's journey through the houses of the Zodiac wheel. What would you like to add?
No, I'm just going to share screen.
Okay, yes. So we have a little slide presentation, but we really wanted to keep it storytelling mode. So I just put in images with a few keywords. And this is something that I have been obsessed with, I guess you could say, for a while. So when it comes to astrology, for some reason, I always want to bring it into some kind of soul journey context, some kind of context of higher self and this life, and bring meaning kind of in that bigger, broader picture. And I think this is one way of doing it. All right, so we're going to tell the soul story through the natal chart. Okay. So maybe before we begin, I'm just going to kind of give an overview of the images and the way I see kind of this zodiac wheel working both within our lifetime, which is what these houses and the soul journey is really going to be about this talk, but also in the bigger context, in the scheme of higher self, our soul manifesting and coming down in different lifetimes. So the idea of reincarnation. And for me, I see it very much as there's a cycle within the lifetime that you see in the 12 houses of the wheel, but there's also that same cycle that you can take out to the soul learning at a certain level of consciousness and learning and experiencing that level of consciousness from in lots of different ways in different lifetimes, and kind of evolving until it's mastered. I don't even know if you want to use that, but experienced fully and come into union with that experience from all different angles at that level. And then once that is kind of complete, then the higher self can choose to level up. And so I have that image of the spiral in my head. And so we might start out with a very simplistic, very narrow kind of life experience, whether you want to think of it as prehistoric man, where they weren't really dealing with a lot of, well, we assume they weren't dealing with a lot of big social, cultural, philosophical, intellectual kind of experiences in a lifetime, that it was much more about the physical reality of just staying alive, being alive, and interacting with nature and the world around them. And then as they complete that cycle, kind of that experience from so many different angles and many different lifetimes, it can level up and broaden its experience that it wants to have in this next level of consciousness. And you keep spiraling up as you master one level from all the experiences, and you've completed that, you can level up and you keep expanding outward and adding to your experience.
Christine, do you think that that growth is the understanding of love? That we come from a very basic understanding of love, more like the survival idea, to then connect with one another as a tribe. You were talking about our ancestors, like really back at the beginning, right? I think at the beginning was this idea of working together to be able to hunt. So the love was to the group, not even the wives back then, right? It was to the group, to the people that are hunting with you, that are protecting the colony, right? Or the tribe. And then through years is the understanding of maybe your partner, maybe more than one partner, but you start understanding that there is more than a tribe. You can get into a closer relationship. And then we start expanding to love our kids, right? And then, or our close family. And then I think the last teachers that came, that we have awareness of, start talking about loving your neighbor, loving one another. So in a way, we are expanding that idea of what love is, loving more and maybe a wider range, right? To who knows, maybe to understand that we're all coming from that same source and loving, connecting one on one and seeing the spark of God in all of us, recognizing that we are all aspects of that same spark, and therefore there is only love between us, even if we're not related, right? Recognizing that spark and then connecting through love with the other person or nature.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. I think that drives home kind of the connection to unity consciousness. How close are you to that? How much are you moving towards it? But I do think there's very important aspects of choosing to come and live in this physical life.
Mhm.
And so that's the spiritual side of it. But I think there's probably also experiences of just being in a body and having a life, a physical life, and having to make sure that you can sustain that. And also the idea of self and evolving into the idea of self. So there's that body, mind, soul that I think all three of those aspects are important about reincarnating into a physical form. But I definitely think that that's the overarching theme of the spiritual evolution, is that love, divine love, unconditional love, and experiencing that and moving towards it, right? Because I think we can pretty much admit that most of us nowadays might have a concept of what unconditional love is, but we've probably never experienced it and have challenges expressing it ourselves. So I think that's kind of the overarching theme that I wanted to kind of put in place, that there is a higher self that is creating these plans of experience through lifetimes, through levels of consciousness. And the lifetime then is planned out before we come down with very specific goals in mind, very specific ways of expressing self, of experiencing self vis-a-vis the world or the other, the work that we do, all of our relationships with other people, intimate and business partnerships, and with the world, nature, all of that we kind of plan out before we come. So there's this idea of you, Laura, in this lifetime before you were born, created this plan. And the moment that you were born, wherever the stars and the planets were aligned and the signs within the houses, that is kind of the map of that plan in that moment. And so you can trace through the wheel of the zodiac chart, through the houses, this story of incarnating into physical body and moving through all of these phases and different ways of experiencing self in this world, all the way to the 12th house, which brings us back to this idea of divine love, unity, consciousness. And so it's this evolution of the soul. And that in every lifetime, you plan different ways of experiencing that.
Mhm.
So whether it's through the physical body, you have a lot of activity in the first house, but you don't have a lot, say, in the 12th house, which is that unity consciousness, or maybe you want to experience in the next lifetime really intense partnerships. So that'll be the emphasis in how you kind of build and expand the soul's awareness of self and self within the divine.
Yeah, and it also could be
Like,
lessons that we didn't finish in previous lifetime that we come in here to say, okay, now I'm just gonna go a little further. I'm gonna continue this and expand it a little bit deeper, maybe, right?
yeah, I mean, I think that kind of brings in a very linear time kind of concept.
Mhm.
I almost, and I do think there's an aspect to that, but I see it more as so if there is no linear time and everything's happening at the same time, you just add layers on. I think your higher self may see, I see exactly where this lifetime has taken me, and there's a little more to go, but I need to add in these other elements in order to really kind of complete that lesson, or complete bringing those gifts out into the world. And so it just adds in, it's like adding in a different spice into the
Yeah,
pot.
I see it more like maybe in this lifetime that is programmed here doesn't have all the space and all the opportunities because
Yeah.
of society, or so I'm going to extend and try to incorporate more wisdom to this theme, but from a different lifetime, that this one, yes, offers me the technology or the freedom to experience this from this angle now.
Mhm. Yeah. So that's kind of the framework of how we get now to the story of the wheel. And so we're going to start with the first house and move all the way through the wheel as kind of an introduction to all of the houses. So in the first house, to me, it represents when the soul comes in onto earth in bodily form. So the first house is all about fully experiencing that, just having a physical body, being an individual, having a self-identity, and bringing that forth, like manifesting as that in the world. So it's about physicality, taking action, understanding who you are, being very aware of self in the world.
Yeah, and I think also the strength that you have to enter physicality, all the action and all that willpower that you have to go to enter this realm, right? Like action and being the warrior is right there at the beginning.
Yeah. Okay, so that's the first house. And then the second house, we start to expand. So where the first house, we're all about our physical body, ourself. In the second house, we start to notice that there is a nature and a world around us that we can use to build and create our life. So it becomes about creating the foundations of our life, creating our home, building things, manifesting things in life. It's also about then how we value things and ourselves within that world. So that's the second house then.
Moving to the third one.
Yeah. And so now we've gone from, oh, here I am, I have a body, I am self, to, hey, there's things around me that I can use to start building and creating a life. And this house, in the third house, it begins connecting with the mental realm, with the mind. So you're aware of your thoughts, and you're also wanting to communicate those thoughts with another. So where the second house is kind of material world, the third house, it's the Gemini sign, right? So it's the twin, so it's you and another. And it's that idea of starting to connect and communicate with other people around you and have kind of a thought identity for yourself that you want to bring through.
Yeah, if we think who is the ruler of the third house is Mercury, and Mercury is that, is mind, and is recognizing what is in front of us, naming, describing, and being able to communicate what we are perceiving, starting to exchange ideas of
Yeah,
the world around us.
yeah. So with the fourth house, so you have, if you look at the 12 houses, you have them in quadrants. So we just went through the first three houses, which is the first quadrant. So it's all about self-identity and relating self to the world and others. This next quadrant that we're moving into, it's really about the emotional world that we live in and how we relate through our emotions with others. And so in the fourth house, it's that first forming of emotional connections. So it's about your early childhood, it's about your family, it's about your ancestors, it's about the home environment that you live in. And it's about whoever it plays that role of nurturer of you at that stage. So it's a lot of almost, so when I think of a child connecting emotionally, it's reactionary, really. There isn't a lot of thought. You don't plan or plot your emotions. You just kind of go along with interacting with others on an emotional level at kind of almost an unconscious kind of way. So it's a very innocent, but also very formative time.
And very basic, right? Is giving love and receiving love from the people that are close to you and feeling safe through that love too.
Yeah.
All right.
So then in the fifth house, this is kind of a little bit of maturing. So it goes from that not truly being aware of your emotions to now really stepping into this, I am an emotional being. And it's this idea of there's this exuberance and joy and passion that comes through you where you fully kind of dive into the emotional self that you are and in bringing that forth into the world. So it's about expressing yourself, creativity, passions, your first love affair, the first crush that you have, kind of just experiencing life through your emotions and through I guess it can be either way, right? You can express passions in a shadow aspect, but also in a light aspect. But it's kind of that there's a spontaneity here, but there's also a consciousness to the emotional self that you're projecting into the world.
Do you think that is like the conscious discovery of the self, like looking at yourself in the mirror and say, "Oh, this is me." So I came into
Yeah.
the world, I saw everything around, I start exchanging with others, I am feeling safe, I understand that I have emotions, but now this is me and I have something to do here and I have something to offer here. And so I'm going to start playing this game now. It's giving expression to everything that we are discovering about ourselves.
Mhm.
All right.
So where in the fourth house, it's that unconscious, emotionally interacting with others. The fifth house is this becoming very self-aware and emotionally putting out into the world through your passions. The sixth house to me kind of settles down, right? And it thinks about, okay, I am an emotional being and I connect emotionally with others. What is the purpose in that? So for the sixth house, it's taking that emotional self and working in the world with a purpose of care and nurture for others and for self.
Yeah,
So it's a house of service.
I think because it's an earth house, is what can I do? Like, what can I materialize to serve here? It's
Mhm.
with the previous house, you discover that you are a creator. But
Yes.
with this house is, well, okay, what can I create that is going to be useful, that I can share with the world? How can I serve in a way? But connecting with the action, the material stuff that you can do, that you can offer, that you can create. It's
Mhm. I think it really is a maturing of that emotional
Mhm.
self. Okay, so we've worked through the bottom half of the chart, which is the inner, the intimate, the personal kind of aspects of the houses. And now we're coming into the upper half and the next quadrant, the next three houses, and they're all about how we interact with others. So in the seventh house, we're now interacting with one-on-one with someone, but on a level where we're really making a commitment and a connection. There's a little bit more longevity. There's more of it's a more committed relationship. So it can be marriage or partnership, romantic partnership, but it also can be friendships. It can be coworkers. Someone you work one-on-one with, or you collaborate with others. So it's really about linking yourself to someone else in some way that means something.
And the growth that you receive, or the growth that you achieve through the relationship, right? Those challenging relationships, those flowy relationships. So in ones you have growth through the challenges, and the other ones you have growth because you hold hands and expand together. But is this idea of what the other brings also to into your life.
In a very overt, obvious way, right?
Mm-hmm.
A very conscious thing. Whereas in the eighth house, it's more of a deep, subconscious, mysterious, sometimes way. If you're not truly connected with who you are and what you need and what you want and what energies drive you, it can be a very subtle, unconscious thing. But so the eighth house now, where the seventh house is one-on-one, working together, very open, very consciously creating something, a connection with another for a purpose. For me, the eighth house is about the currents and the energies that flow beneath that. So it's kind of like the fifth house where you have that passionate emotional self. Here it's the passions that drive deep beneath you. So it's the psyche, it's the psychology, it's the sexual relationships that you have, it's psychic abilities. And for me, what really came out, so when I wrote the blog, which ended up, I think, being a lot of channeled information, it was really shown to me that it's about energetic exchanges of all kinds, and that flow really needs to be there. in the eighth house. And if it's not, if it's imbalanced, then it can lead more into those shadow kind of aspects of that the eighth house kind of conveys.
All right.
That makes sense? Okay.
To the next one.
So seventh house was one-on-one partnerships, working together to create something. The eighth house is kind of like those deep, sticky kind of energies that you connect with other people in. Now the ninth house, again, it's opening up that sphere, and it's not necessarily talking about your intimate circles, your friendships, your coworkers, your sexual relationships. It's you and your society, you and your culture. And it's this idea of exploring that relationship, understanding what the society's systems are, the government systems, the philosophical and higher education. But it's also about traveling to other cultures and other societies. So expanding out to the world and exploring the world. And so it's this idea of, okay, now I kind of have understood at an intellectual level how the society is created, what the rules are that govern that. But it's also then asking you to understand where you as an individual can fit into that kind of bigger system.
For me, the ninth is also the soul opening to more. It's opening to what is the meaning of life. How can I grow here? It's like having remembering there is more than physicality in a way, and starting that journey of transforming physicality to kind of bring closer the spiritual self. So trying to understand the meaning of the spiritual world, and that's when you become a philosopher or a spiritual seeker, or you get into the religious groups. But it's about finding a path, a mysterious path that you want to discover, and to give more spice to your life.
And it's really interesting that you bring that up, because it's kind of like in each quadrant has a theme: self, emotions, relationships with others, partnerships. But that the last house in that quadrant kind of opens up and bridges the themes of the current quadrant it's in and of the next one coming.
Yeah.
So with the third house, you realize that there is another person. I can relate to another person, and it may be only at the mental level in the third house, but it's still relating to another. And as humans, our emotions drive our relationships. They're such a big part of it. So it kind of feeds into what's going to come in the next three houses, the emotional. Okay, now we really connect with others. And then in the sixth house, it's this idea of like, yes, I'm emotional, but there's a purpose in my relationships. And so then you move into the next quadrant, which is all about relationships. And here you come to the ninth house. And yeah, it's opening up kind of this bigger understanding of who am I and what is this world that I live in. And then
Yeah.
we move into the next three houses where it's all about that bigger world, the spiritual self.
All right. So 10th house now.
All right, so we come to the last quadrant, and the 10th is the first house of that quadrant, and it's all about like what we just said. So if the ninth house, you start to explore the meaning of life according to the systems that are around you and your place in them. Now in the 10th house, it asks you, okay, you've explored that. Now really tap into what is your life's purpose. So the 10th house is all about the work that you put out into the world, what you're meant to bring forth into the world and offer to it.
What
And
are
so,
your gifts, right? What are your gifts that you want to leave for everybody? What are
yeah,
the changes that you want to create for everybody? It's
yeah.
in a way understanding how you see the world and how you want to change it, and adjusting and doing the work to make
Mhm.
it happen.
Yeah, I really see it as an offering. I really like the idea of gift and offering better than work and career, but I think
Mhm.
most people will relate and want information about work and career. And I think it's really interesting. So, where in the fourth house, we had the house of the nurturer or the mother figure. In this one, we have the father figure or the facilitator, is what we decided we really liked as a term. And I just want to highlight that everyone has the 10th house and everyone has a life purpose and gifts that they're meant to bring forth and offer to the world. So everyone in some way is a facilitator for others, just like everyone in some way is a nurturer for others. So we have this very concrete me and what I'm offering to the world. And then in the 11th house, we have,
Here.
yes. So we have this idea of we're still working with groups and within groups for a common purpose though now. So the idea is more about the energy of coming together to do something with another group, with a group that has something, the same aim or the same purposes in mind. So we start to kind of become a more collective energy in putting forth this work, but it's also in moving the group, moving the society, moving the world forward in some way. So there's a progression in the 11th house that wasn't necessarily there in the 10th. So we want to kind of innovate and we want to bring new ideas and we want to kind of push forward and evolve in the 11th house.
You know, I was thinking the 11th house is ruled by Uranus, and Uranus is about inspiration and changes, right? Bringing the new and also changing what it is already there. So I'm thinking the 10th house, we talk about offering and creating something for the world, but it's an earth house, so it's doing something that we already know. We are is being done before or continuing doing something, right? But the 11th house is an air house, so it's receiving that inspiration and being able to see something that is not there yet, and then you bring the group together to work and make that happen. You inspire others with your ideas, with your own inspirations. You share that inspiration because it's air. You talk with the group, and then you get a tribe helping you to bring that inspiration and to materialize it, right?
Yeah, and so I think what you're really talking about too is this idea of where does inspiration and innovation come from?
Mm-hmm.
And if we're going with the premise that there's a higher self and there's a divine self that we're connected to, now we're talking about bringing through and bridging that connection between divine self and human
I
self.
think that's what happened from 1 to 10. We are still in a physical level,
Mm-hmm.
things, material, the things that the society already know, trying to figure our way there and our place there and how we can do things and manifest from that um, from that reality that we are in. But in the last two, we start getting the soul start to be a little louder and clearer and start sending us messages of where we can go, what is also possible. So
Mm-hmm.
to me, 11 houses is that inspiration is this is what I'm offering on the 10th, but what else can I do? Let my soul talk and
Yeah.
start that deeper connection with the soul.
Mm-hmm. And we're also opening and widening again, expanding our world. So where we started off just focused on our body and then seeing the world around us, and then it was the people around us, and then all of a sudden it was like diving deep into the psyche. Now we're going outward and upward, right? And we're expanding self into the spiritual realms as we work through the wheel. So I think with that, the 12th house is then the ultimate of opening yourself up completely to that divine connection and being truly connected with the soul in physical form and the divine soul, higher self, God consciousness. So it's this idea of really connecting with we all are one, and that becoming humanity as a whole on earth as one. And so serving humanity, it's really going deep in the subconscious and connecting with the higher self. It's about unconditional love. So it really is the final expansion to in the evolution of the soul to coming back to the realization that you are soul in a human body having a human experience, and what does that mean?
Yeah, and the understanding of the process that you went through from 1 to 11, all the transformation, all the opening, all the understandings that you received, all the insight that you got through that process in the 12th house is you with yourself, understanding now who you are after you went through that transformation, and offering that expansion to your soul. Because when you leave the world, what happens is all your knowledge is what you bring to your soul. This is the process. This is what I learned. This is what I saw, and what I achieved. This is my growth, and the ones that receive that growth is your soul. Is your soul the ones that expand through your work here on earth? So I think the 12 houses is kind of putting together all the experiences, learning how you transform yourself through them, and offer it to your higher self.
So it's like a culmination of it all, kind
Yeah.
of bringing it all together. And so that's the soul's journey in the chart. And I just want to make the point again that just because maybe when you look at your natal chart and you don't see a really active 12th house, and you think, oh, I'm not at the final point, I'm not bringing it all together. I don't feel that that's the case. I feel like your soul plots out every lifetime, right? Wherever level you're in right now, but you still have awarenesses of those maybe other selves that are living other parallel lives on the same level, but through different experiences. And maybe you've already done that full 12th house journey. They don't have to be done in order. Your soul can choose to hop around. It's like creating it however you want. Think of the million possibilities and combinations that there can be with all the 10 planets, 12 signs, 12 houses, and you can rotate and put them in all different ways to create lots of unique experiences in every lifetime. So don't don't be so hyper focused on, oh, I'm in the 12th house and I have 5 planets there, so I'm mastering this level. I don't think it works that way. And so I want to put that out there. And then the other thing I wanted to mention too, which I had thought about doing in each house but then left out, because we covered, when we did the 12 signs and we did those slides with like the light and shadow aspects, and we also talked about the planets that rule them, we also talked about the body parts that each sign governs. So Aries rules the first house. So they share similar characteristics. And you'll see that when we do the house mini videos, when we start talking about each individual house, you can kind of see the overlap. Okay, Aries governs the first house. We've already done the Aries sign. They're very similar. So the first house governed by Aries, the body part that's governed by that is the crown, and kind of from here up. And then if you look at the second house, it's the ears and the throat. So it's that birthing process. So if you think about a human being born, yes. And as you go through, and then in the 12th house, it's about, I think, the ankles and the feet. And I don't know if it was the nervous system or something else that was part of it, but you really do see that the birth of the baby through the 12th houses. So I think that just kind of, for me, validates or highlights that process even more.
I know you love to talk about houses and the process, the transformation of the soul and the entering the soul. So maybe we can have another video later with just the body parts and see how we enter this reality.
Yeah. So I did write a blog too, and I think it might have a little bit a different way of telling the story, but it's the same idea. So I have that blog, and I'll put a link to it in the description if you want to read it as well. So this is our story of the wheel and the soul journey through it. And then we're going to do an introduction to the wheel itself and its parts, and kind of how to read what houses are where. And then we're going to do kind of an overview of the houses, and then we'll start diving deep into each individual house. So that's kind of the progression of what we've planned for the next bunch of videos that we're going to be putting out.
Yeah, and we also going to have a PDF presentation that then will be uploaded on our Facebook group, so you can have that for references too.
Yeah, and so the Facebook group is Soul Astrology with Christine and Laura, and it's a public group and anyone can join. So if this is your first time with us, welcome to the video series, and also come and join us. We've created a community over on Facebook, and we answer questions and share insights and write posts about full moon energies and all kinds of things over there. And there was one other thing I wanted to say. Oh, on the Facebook group, we also are putting up these files. So our PowerPoint slides or our PDFs that we're creating, that we're using in these videos, and we have a playlist. So we're alternating the videos between my YouTube channel, Finding Dharma Christine Rapp, and Laura Giro's channel. Do you have Alba Energy, or is it just Laura Giro?
It has the Alba logo, but it's under my name.
Okay, so we're alternating. So if you're confused about where to start and what the chronology is of them, on our Facebook page, under files, we have a document where it lists them in order and they're active links. So you can just use that document and click on whatever video you want to watch, and it'll take you right to it.
Yeah, but also in our channels, both of us have a playlist with all the videos organized.
Yes, so there's multiple ways to find it and follow it. And thank you so much for joining us. So you can look for our next video, which will talk about the wheel itself, and we'll keep you posted when the other ones come out.
Bye, everyone.
All right, thanks everyone, bye.